I've been hauling freight for about 11 years now. That's long enough to know that the road has its own rules. Long enough to understand that fear doesn't usually hit you all at once. It creeps in slowly, disguised as annoyance, boredom, or fatigue. Long enough to know that when something feels wrong out there, it's usually because it is. This happened late fall of 2019. I remember the season clearly, the kind of cold that settles in after midnight, sharp enough to cut through the cab, even with the heater on low. The sky was clear that night, stars spread thin across a black canvas. But the moon was gone. No ambient light, just darkness and asphalt. I was running a northbound overnight through rural Wyoming. A refrigerated trailer, boxed meat, tight schedule, no stops planned unless absolutely necessary. Those drives mess with your head if you let them. There's nothing to look at, nothing to listen to but static, nothing to focus on except the road and your own thoughts. The highway felt endless. 2 lanes, no exits for miles, no fences, no structures, just open land stretching into nothingness on both sides. The wind was strong enough to rock the trailer occasionally. Not dangerous, just enough to keep me alert. I had to keep making small corrections, hands steady on the wheel. The radio faded in and out, catching pieces of old songs before dissolving back into static. At around 2:10 a.m., I noticed headlights behind me. I didn't think much of it at first. Someone always ends up behind you eventually. Out there, seeing another vehicle can even be comforting. But minutes passed, then more minutes, and those headlights stayed exactly where they were, not closing the distance, not falling back, just there. I checked my speed. 58, cruise control on, right where I should be. I glanced at my mirrors again, adjusting them slightly. All I could see were 2 dull yellow headlights floating in the dark. They weren't bright. They weren't modern. They didn't bounce with the road the way most cars do. They looked steady, fixed. After about 5 minutes, I eased off the accelerator a little, expecting them to pass. They didn't. They matched my speed perfectly. I sped back up. They stayed with me. That's when irritation crept in. Truckers hate unpredictability. Someone riding your blind spot is dangerous, stupid, or intentional. And none of those options sit well at 2 in the morning. I leaned forward, trying to get a better angle in the mirror. Still couldn't see the vehicle itself. Just the headlights. Too far apart. Too low. My gut tightened slightly. After about 10 minutes, I flicked my hazards on and off. A universal signal out there. Go ahead. Road's clear. Nothing. The headlights didn't move. The irritation turned into unease, the kind that makes your shoulders tense without you realizing it. I turned the radio volume down, then back up again. Static, always static. Then the CB crackled. At first, I thought it was interference. That happens constantly in remote areas. But this wasn't random noise. It was breathing, slow, controlled, deliberate. Each inhale and exhale came through clearly, like the microphone was being held right against someone's mouth. I stared at the radio for a second, my pulse suddenly loud in my ears. I picked up the mic. "Breaker," I said, "you behind me?" My voice sounded too loud in the cab, too sharp. Silence. The breathing continued. 5 seconds, 6, 7. Then it stopped. No click, no static, just nothing. That's when the headlights dropped back, farther than before. So far, I almost thought they'd turned off or taken an exit. A wave of relief washed over me. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. Then they surged forward, fast, violently fast. The headlights ballooned in my mirrors, closing the distance in seconds. My heart slammed against my ribs as the vehicle swerved into the oncoming lane like it was about to pass. For a split second, I braced myself to see it. But instead of pulling alongside me, it drifted back behind, right into the blind spot, perfectly, like it was playing a game. My hands were sweating now. I wiped one on my jeans without looking down. The CB crackled again. This time there was no breathing, just a voice. Low, calm, neutral. You shouldn't be out here alone. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. Not because of what he said, but how he said it. No threat, no anger, no curiosity, just a statement, like a fact. I didn't answer. I pressed down on the accelerator. The engine growled as the semi picked up speed, pushing past the limit. The road ahead blurred slightly as my headlights carved a narrow tunnel through the darkness. I waited for the headlights to keep pace. They didn't. They fell back, then vanished. Not gradually, not turning away, just gone. I scanned my mirrors again and again, convinced they'd reappear. They didn't. I drove another 30 miles without seeing another vehicle. No cars, no trucks, nothing. The silence felt heavier now. When I finally pulled into a truck stop near sunrise, my hands were still shaking. I unplugged the CB radio before I even shut off the engine. I told myself it was probably a prank. Some bored driver. Someone messing with frequencies. But here's the thing. CB radios don't work like that. You don't get clean voices without identifying yourself. You don't get breathing that clear unless someone is intentionally transmitting, and you don't follow a semi for miles just to disappear like you were never there. I finished the haul. But ever since that night, I don't ignore headlights that won't pass, because on those roads, not everyone wants to get ahead of you. Some just want to stay close enough to remind you that you're not as alone as you think. Every trucker knows one simple rule about way stations. They're either open or they're not. There's no middle ground, no confusion, no guessing. A way station doesn't half exist. This happened to me in 2016, somewhere on a long, empty stretch between Ely and Tonopah, Nevada. If you've ever driven that route, you know how unforgiving it is. Miles and miles of desert, no towns, no lights, no landmarks, just darkness, rock, and the road cutting through it like a scar. It was just past midnight. I was exhausted. Not falling asleep exhausted, but that deeper kind of tired that makes your reactions slower and your judgment softer around the edges. The kind you get after too many consecutive runs, too much caffeine, and not enough real sleep. I'd been driving for over 9 hours already. The cab smelled like stale coffee and engine heat. My eyes burned. My shoulders ached from staying tense for too long. I kept telling myself I'd stop at the next safe place and rest for an hour. That's when I saw the sign. Way station. 2 miles, I remember frowning when I read it. Out there, way stations are almost always closed at night. Especially that late. Especially that far from anything. Normally you just roll past and forget they even exist. But 2 miles later, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. Lights. Bright white lights cutting into the darkness. Too bright. The entire way station was lit up like a football field, floodlights humming. the scale house glowing from the inside. Even the overhead lamps along the entrance were on, and the gate arm raised, wide open. I slowed down instinctively, my foot easing off the accelerator. Something felt wrong immediately. Not fear, not yet. Confusion. My brain was trying to reconcile what my eyes were seeing with what I knew to be true. Way stations don't just open themselves. I checked the time again, 12:07 a.m. Against my better judgment, I signaled and pulled in. Part of me thought maybe there was a random inspection, maybe a temporary operation. Maybe I just never caught one open at night before. That's the thing about exhaustion. It makes bad decisions feel reasonable. The moment my truck crossed onto the property, the silence hit me. No other engines, no radios, no voices, just the low hum of lights and the soft crunch of gravel under my tires. I rolled toward the scale slowly, scanning the area. No officers, no parked patrol vehicles, no other trucks waiting. The scale house door was closed, but the interior lights were on. I couldn't see anyone inside. I lined up and rolled onto the scale. The truck settled with a heavy metallic creak. The digital display flickered to life. I leaned forward, expecting to see numbers scroll across. Instead, the screen went blank for a second. Then one word appeared. Wait, that was it. No wait. No instructions. Just wait. I sat there, engine idling, watching the word glow back at me. 30 seconds passed. Then another 30. The silence started to feel uncomfortable. I glanced around again, tapping the steering wheel unconsciously. That's when I noticed movement. Not ahead of me, behind. In my passenger side mirror, I caught sight of a shape near the back of my trailer. At first, I thought it was just a shadow cast by the lights. Then it shifted. There was someone standing there still. Two still. No reflective vest, no uniform, no flashlight, just a person-shaped figure near my trailer's rear axle. I rolled down my window halfway. "Hey," I called out. "You good back there?" My voice echoed slightly across the empty station. The figure didn't move, didn't turn, didn't react. A cold line crept up my spine. I cleared my throat. "Scale's not reading," I added. "You want me to pull forward or?" Nothing. The figure remained perfectly motionless. That's when my instincts finally kicked in. This wasn't right. I reached for the gear shifter. The instant I did, the display changed. The word wait disappeared, replaced by new text. Do not leave. Every alarm in my head went off at once. That message wasn't part of any standard way station system. I'd been driving for over 20 years. I'd seen every variation of scale displays. None of them talked like that. My heart started pounding. I slammed the accelerator. The truck lurched forward off the scale, tires squealing slightly as I pulled toward the exit. As I did, my trailer rocked violently. Not wind, not road vibration. A sharp, sudden jolt, like someone had jumped or fallen off the back. I didn't look. I didn't slow down. I blasted through the exit and back onto the highway, pushing the truck harder than I should have. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to tighten my grip on the wheel just to keep it steady. I watched my mirrors for miles. I didn't see anyone follow. I didn't see headlights. I didn't see the way station lights after the first curve. It was like it had never been there. I didn't stop until sunrise. When I finally pulled over at a rest area hours later, my legs felt weak climbing out of the cab. I walked around the trailer checking for damage. There was nothing, no marks, no footprints, no sign anyone had ever been there. A week later, at a truck stop in Utah, I told another driver about it, just casually, like a weird story. He didn't laugh. He didn't even react at first. He just stared at me. Then he said very quietly, "That way station hasn't been operational since 2008. I pulled out my phone and looked it up later. He was right. No renovations, no night operations, no temporary reopenings. Just abandoned. I don't stop at lit way stations anymore. Not at night. Because some places don't need to be open to want you to stay.